Alright, so I've known about this little tidbit thanks to a brief interest I had in my dad's old cassette tape collection, and one film I'd pulled out was Goncharov, the 1973 Martin Scorsese film about the Naples Mafia, though it was written by one Matteo JWHJ0715. I've always been obsessed with the film, admittedly. Scorsese's use of lighting, I think, is absolutely second to none, with how it's used to code secret information into scenes. Additionally, the homoeroticism in the film, especially shortly after the Hays Code was dissolved, is truly something well ahead of its time, even if the only real thing that happens is Katya kissing Sofia on the cheek, but very tenderly. Unfortunately, I'm unable to show any film footage. Despite the film being 50 years old next year, it's still under some heavy copyright that would get my channel axed. So, why do I bring up this half-century old film today? Well, it's because one scene really stuck with me since I read a playthrough of the original Danganronpa about a year later, and it immediately became clear to me what that reference was. Mondo Owada's execution is a pretty clear reference to the Steel Sphere chase scene that closes out Act 2 of the film, and is the final nail in the coffin that completely splits the Naples Mafia into Goncharov's supporters and Mario Ambrosini's supporters. I never thought a video like this would be worth making, since nobody had really ever heard of Goncharov, and when I talk about things that are even remotely more obscure than Danganronpa, like Skullgirls or The Road of Blood, another forgotten 70s gem, my view count is halved, if not more than halved. In fact, I had to delete the video on The Road of Blood because it was clear that nobody was interested in it. But now I can be sure Goncharov is of interest thanks to its resurgence on Tumblr, and I can finally talk about this fun little trivia tidbit. So, towards the end of the second act, after the aforementioned kiss in a truly emotional moment between Katya and Sofia, Sofia gives Katya vital information about Ambrosini's plan to take over the Naples Mafia. Katya asks Sofia to leave with her, but Sofia says she can't, that she must stop Ambrosini from the inside. Katya leaves with the information, but as she gets into her car, Valerie, played by Gene Hackman, realizes that Katya knows about Ambrosini's plans, though critically he does not know Sofia told her. A chase scene ensues, and especially for 1973, the choreography of this chase is truly impressive. This was before stunts were really a huge thing, so the actors were genuinely in danger. Especially Hackman. He was chasing Katya on a motorcycle. As you may have guessed, this is where the reference starts. I still remember having a discussion with my dad about it. I thought Valerie's motorcycle was pretty cool, even though it belonged to a bad guy. I mean, technically it was a mafia film, so there weren't really any good guys. And my dad mentioned its make. It was a Yamaha RD250, though at Hackman's request due to the high-risk scenes and his concern for himself and his stunt double, it was modified to have a backrest. My dad would talk about how, as a young teenager, if you had this bike, you were considered the cool kid on the block because of its association in the film. And I think I would have been about as old as he was when Goncharov first came out, when I first saw the film. Anyway, the Steel Sphere, which is actually one word, not two like I mistakenly said on Tumblr, is Ambrosini's head of operations, a striking steel sphere surrounding his headquarters, likely in hopes it would protect him from outside threats. There's one way in and one way out, the gate at the southern side. Katya, at the end of the chase scene, just barely clears the gate, while Valerie slides up the steel sphere towards its center and towards the top. Because of the laws of physics and his panic at losing Katya, he speeds up, since if he slowed down by that point, he would fall and die. Due to the backrest, however, Hackman suggested, and JWHJ0715 agreed to rewrite the scene in a much more creative fashion. So instead, Valerie keeps driving faster and faster, even breaking the limit of what his motorcycle should actually allow. This bit was filmed with an industrial fan and some wires pulling Hackman back, so it would look like gravity was squishing Valerie. That gets to the point where the bike is going so fast that Valerie's internal organs actually explode because of the speed, and even as he's losing consciousness and dying, you can subtly see his skin ripping as the bike's inertia begins to slow down and carry him safely to the ground. The bike stops at Ambrosini and Sofia's feet, showing what the steel sphere did to Valerie. The speed was so great that it actually churned his organs together, and they leak out his torso through where his skin ruptured now that he's at a standstill. This was achieved with that candy red blood iconic to the 70s era, as well as, I think, pink bread dough spread out across Hackman's body? There's never been an interview on what it is, but if you look super close, you can see his pulse, but I don't think that's enough to dock points, as a wax double would have been super expensive for a single shot, as iconic as the shot is. Now, as you can probably tell, this scene was clearly the reference for Mondo's execution in Danganronpa 37 years later, just due to how dangerous and iconic it was in Goncharov. Now, this is merely hearsay, I have no evidence for this, but at one stage, I heard that they were going to give the Goncharov reference execution to Celestia, since her death closes out the murder act of Danganronpa. However, this was considered by the writing team to be difficult to implement, and would seem a bit forced. Hence, they gave the Goncharov reference death to Mondo. And if you were wondering, yes, Fuyuhiko's eye patch in Super Danganronpa 2 is also a Goncharov reference, though this time referencing Ice Pick Joe and his eye patch. Anyway, I hope this fun little bit of trivia based on the resurfaced Scorsese and WJHJ 0715 film was interesting for you all to learn about. I'm sorry, I swear I do have stuff in the works, it's just taking longer than I expected to work on. I'll see you all next time!